I'm Natalie McCool and welcome to my podcast McCool and the Gang. This is a special series of episodes where I'll be chatting to female artist producers about music production. The reason for this special series is that earlier this year I was awarded an Arts Council grant to develop my own music production. As an artist, I've always had a vision for my music, and when it comes to the production, it's something that I've always been heavily involved with. And most recently, I 100% recorded, produced, and mixed 2 tracks from my recent album, Memory Girl, something which I'm incredibly proud of. Now I've got the opportunity to really lean into that. As part of this podcast, I decided to speak to other female artists who also produce their own music to explore what inspires them and how they work. This episode, I'm very excited to welcome artist and producer Elena Šiljić, who is from and based in New Zealand. Elena started producing her own music as a teenager, experimenting with beats and sounds. She then progressed onto a music degree, winning a national songwriting competition and wowing her peers with her beautiful atmospheric sound. Here's a pretty wonderful chat about her time in London as part of the Roundhouse Artist Residency, about exploring her own signature production style to create her own music and that of upcoming new artists, about synthesis and the curation of sound, and about owning your shit as an independent artist. Here we go.
I think you're a magnet, and I'm a magnet too. People just attract like magnets, like me and you.
Okay, there it goes. Cool. Okay. All right. We're ready.
Record. Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I can give you both accounts of my experiences.
Yeah, let's start with that then. That's a really cool start.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess with doing the residency, I think it was a nice kind of deep dive into committing to the year of having, like projects on the go and deadlines, and also just having the facilities to use provided by the Roundhouse, which was just amazing. I think that was the first thing that was really noticeable to me about being in the UK, was just how much support young people have to be creative and the kind of facilities that they have available to them. I mean, even people that weren't doing the residency, like it was so cheap to book out the studios, the rooms to use CDJs, and I just thought that was really great because we just have nothing like that here.
Right.
So yeah, I guess in that sense, New Zealand's a bit more cliquey. Obviously, we're a lot smaller and we don't have access to that kind of stuff. So that was just like so cool to see, because I think it really promotes, creativity from a young age. And I feel like young kids in the UK really explore that. And it's so evident in like the creative output of artists from the UK. I just think it's like a caliber that's just way higher. Like I've always thought that as a creative, just looking at the UK and just being like, wow, like there's something in the water over there, and then actually being able to live there and kind of experience it. It's like, I fully get it. Like it's just so embedded in the culture, and then there's just the support and the facilities. Like having things on the go was so cool, whereas like in New Zealand it felt a bit more insular, and I think it took me a while to find my people. I feel like I'm getting better at it, honestly, maybe since coming back and kind of having a fresh perspective on it. But when I was younger, it was very much like I was like that weird 16-year-old that went and got a MacBook and was like playing around on Logic. And I went to an all-girls Catholic school, so like people just thought I was so weird, and so just chipping away at it, like making little beats and things in Logic. And then I think it took a couple of years. I think I had to it was funny because my school just didn't recognize like being creative at all. I had like 4 people in my music class. And it wasn't until I had won like a major national songwriting competition that they were like,
wow.
Oh, maybe we should be more supportive, which I found really funny. You kind of have to really prove yourself here in New Zealand. We're kind of a bit the classic kind of small poppy kind of thing, don't want to be too big for your boots until you're like, either I'm going to be really frank with you, to be honest. The artists that come out in New Zealand, the Lords, the Bennies, they are super rich. Like, they come from rich families. And that's something I really want to demystify, because I feel like a lot of creatives here in New Zealand kind of don't understand that. I feel like I've been in the industry long enough to know that, like, you do need a lot of financial backing to reach the kind of success that they're reaching. And I think a lot of my friends here are like, why am I not doing that well? And it's like, oh, dude, you have no idea. And I think that's when coming to the UK was like really solidified it for me as well, just seeing like how hard independent artists work, but also how much knowledge is just there for the taking, or like people just want to uplift you more, I feel, you know, and they want you to do well, whereas like here it's like, oh, this is my little, or like, you know, I don't want to shit on anybody, but I've just kind of seen and heard enough where it's like it's like the parent push and the financial backing, you know. It doesn't feel organic, you know, like and so to me, my qualm with that now since coming back is like those artists seen on the world map and like the independent artists that are like grinding away just aren't getting that support, you know. And I've kind of come back and like really questioned a lot of the big bodies, like the funding bodies, different things, being like, what are you doing to like encourage fresh talent and to platform the underground talent more, you know? Like, you shouldn't need like $100,000 to start up your music career, you know, when streaming makes hardly anything, you know. It just makes no sense. And I feel like we're just lacking some of the tools that were so readily available for me in the UK, and that was really cool. I just felt way more empowered, and like I felt like there was more of a pathway, and just like getting paid actual money to play shows and stuff was still really wild to me. Like, I've come back and people are like, oh, Elena, do you want to play, or do you want to do something? And it's just, they expect you to do everything for free. Like, it's not treated like
it's
a real
not okay,
job.
is it?
Yeah. And so I've had to say no to a lot of things, to be honest. I've had to really put my foot down just for my own mental like well-being as well, just to go, actually, no, like, I've been doing this for quite a while. Like, I've just come back from having a really great run in London, and I just value my work enough to just say, here's my price, like, here's what you have to pay. But now I'm kind of like just finding that middle ground, because I don't want to hinder myself too much, because I've just been in situations where people are just like, I just can't afford that. And it's like, it's a vicious cycle, because all of us young creatives don't have any money here. It's a really weird one. Like, I saw a quote today that was like, why are all my idols unemployed and all the people that I hate like working in business and like have business degrees, you know? Like, there's just quite a dichotomy of like that kind of environment, especially now. So it's a struggle. I mean, but just like being really self-taught and self-instigated, and just carving out my own path. It's an interesting one, whereas like in the UK, I mean, definitely when I was doing the residency, it was really cool to be able to just be like, oh, like, wow, I'm just paying my rent with the money that I earned from just like playing shows and doing work with people. And that was really cool. You know, your dreams feel a bit compromised, especially when people don't pay you for creative work. And it's something I'm really trying to tackle here. And I think it's just, I really think we just normalize not paying creatives here.
Well, music has been cheapened quite a lot. And I hate to say it, but I'm seeing a lot more kind of commentary on social media about how Spotify and streaming services, like, why are you pushing Spotify as an artist? Like, you shouldn't be doing that, because it just doesn't pay and it's not even worth it. And the whole like, I'm going to call it an inquest. That's not the right word. I don't know I can't remember what the right word is. And the inquest into Spotify royalties and the way they're split and how it heavily favors labels. I think that's amazing, and I think it's something that has been coming for a long time. And, you know, as an independent artist, it doesn't mean that much to me because I'm not signed to a label. And so I own my own masters, so it doesn't affect me really. But I know that from, you know, friends' experiences and people I know that they've had such a fucking hard time with labels and haven't been paid properly, and I just think it really needs to change, and that songwriters and artists need to be, you know, more, that it needs to be more weighted in their favour.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's interesting when you were saying about the idea of wealth.
Yeah.
In the UK, you know, it's the same.
Yeah.
And I find that we do have a lot more support. Like, that is so true. You know, even like the Arts Council funding. Like, I'm from a working class background and I have this access to these amazing grants, and it's wonderful. But there are a lot of incredibly successful artists who are from a very wealthy background, and they wouldn't. You know, it's that whole thing of like, you know, you can do that because your parents will just pay your rent, and that's fine.
It just feels like it's such a commodity, to be an artist in this day and age. Like, where you need to have parents, funding stuff. I just wish, honestly, the qualm that I have with it, it's like, no disrespect to them. That's great. They money allows them freedom, but it's the qualm that I have with it is like, I see my friends who genuinely, like, you know, they're wearing their heart on their sleeves, they're putting so much passion into their work, and then just like not seeing the response and not understanding why, and then getting really like down and depressed over it. And it's like, and I just have to like be real with them. I've just like had so many conversations since coming back being like, dude, like, this is why. It's not because your work isn't good, it's just that like there's so much stuff out there, and like it just takes so much to cut through, and we just unfortunately don't have some of the resources. But I mean, like, even things like, I remember we had one workshop at the Roundhouse where it was like one of the guys from Spotify, and he just gave us even like little tips on how to use, you know, the Spotify for Artists right, and just really set that up in a way where you're appealing to playlists and things that like, I just had no idea about. You know, even that kind of info is so helpful because it can be really overwhelming. And what happens is, like you said, with labels, they take advantage of artists that just don't know this stuff. Like same with you. I've had heaps of my friends be really screwed over by bad label deals and money that they're having to pay back. And it's I mean, people like these management companies and things, they're just writing off their taxes on these artists, you know, and then they're having to pay those. The artists are having to pay those for them, you know, like I feel like it's just like miseducation a bit, and I just wish that knowledge was a bit more readily available. But I can see why. It's that whole chain, right? It's like they want that information to be not readily available so that the system can continue. And I feel like, I think independent artists need to disrupt that system. And I feel like we're really close. Like Seb Delise is a really good example of that. Like, she's like such a boss. I don't know if I can swear or not.
Who's that, sorry?
What's that?
Who's that?
Seb Delise. She's from
Seb Delise.
Yeah, she's from the Netherlands. She's independent, and
Wow.
She's great. You should check her out. Like, she's so original that like Beyonce's like stealing ideas from her type stuff.
Great.
Like, and she's independent, and she just like carves out her own path, and it's such a testament to like when you just have great ideas and have the right like team behind you and the right networks and the right knowledge, you can really like carve out a path as an independent artist. And like her whole career is super inspiring. I think what I grapple with at the moment is actually whether I want to be like putting myself in that position of like just bearing everything that you have as an artist. Like, it's so hard. Like, I went on tour with an artist that I really admire from New Zealand. She's based in LA now, Chelsea Jade, and like just, you know, she's been going at it for the last 10 years, and it's amazing just to see her like slowly chipping away. But she came back, after 10 years, like having to do a tour in New Zealand because like she's just not making enough money. And that's the harsh reality of being an artist, you know. And like I think working more and more on the tech side as well, I've realized that like all of us techies, like, and this is me included now because I'm doing more of that than I am being an artist nowadays, like production, lights, everything around the art makes money. Like I'm sending invoices left, right and centre for doing sound for people, for doing lights for people, for production sometimes depending on, you know, but like as soon as it's remotely like creative somehow and not purely like skill tech based, people are just like, oh no, I'm not going to pay for that.
Yeah, no, it's so
like, how does
true.
that work? Yeah.
You know what? It's the same, like, funnily enough, like I mentioned, you know, facilitation earlier, but it's the same. Like you can facilitate a young person's music making and you can charge for that. But it's like, you can't charge for your own music.
Yeah.
It's insane. And, you know, that's like a really worthy cause as well. But I understand the weirdness of that. It is really fucked up.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, I don't know if it's because there's just so many artists and I feel like so many people want to do it. And it's hard to differentiate like people that have really genuine intentions and people that are just doing it for clout, people that are just doing it for TikTok or whatever, you know, like there's so many reasons why people make art these days, and I think it's like less and less rooted in like integrity for me, like not to get too sentimental, but you know, just a lot of art nowadays I'm just like, you're just doing that to be cool, like I'm just missing the point. But then
doing it for TikTok.
Yeah but I love, I'm maybe like a bit old school, like one of my first loves like singer-songwriters is like Laura Marling, and she's to this day like just one of the most incredible like musicians and songwriters, and I have to connect to something like that deeply, you know, like that's like art for me, but maybe I'm just being old school, I don't know.
No, not at all. I get it. So you mentioned you do a lot of things around the music, but I wondered how you got started producing your own work, and whether that was kind of like, you know, through trial and error, or whether that was like a conscious decision of, right, I'm gonna be responsible for the way this sounds.
Yeah, definitely. It was a bit of both. Like I think when I like was in high school and had won that songwriting competition, I remember clearly as a young person like having the opportunity to come into the studio for the first time and record my song, and having like a vision for it, and then this like white male producer just like producing the song in a way that I just didn't envision it at all, in a way that I didn't like, and I was just like, oh, I kind of want creative control over that. And yeah, just not liking the final product because of like the way that, like in a way, like the producers are almost groomed, like they all kind of just thought the same, I thought was one of my things, like all kind of male producers kind of have their way of like their kind of cookie cutter like production method, you know, and it wasn't conducive to like, I don't know, for instance, like FKA Twigs, like, you know, how do you get to a production like style like that, you know? It's like, it's much just like experimentation and like gear and just like trying things out and trying to make that kind of really signature sound. Like that's kind of what we're aiming to do, right? And so it was definitely based out of just like curiosity and being like, I want to make something that people haven't heard before. And then like, you know, DAWs were just becoming more like readily accessible. Like I remember just Googling like what's the best computer to get, like, as a 16-year-old that, like, I can make music on, and what's the best software, and then just, like, slowly doing that more and more. And then I think my experiences in the studio just, like, solidified that, and I was like, nah, I didn't enjoy that process. It kind of made me uncomfortable, and I want to do it myself. And then, yeah, just seeing more and more artists be self-produced, and I'm like, why can't I do it? And now I enjoy it more because it's like I get to do all the fun part and work with artists and yeah, do all the fun stuff, but not the, like, putting my name on it and having people, like, criticize me. But that's maybe my own, like, hurdle that I need to get over and will eventually. But for now, I'm, like, super happy kind of, like, taking the backseat a bit, and just, like, and also, like, I feel like I can guide artists a bit more because of my own experiences being an artist, and that kind of contributes to my production. Like, recently I did kind of co-produce, like, mixed an EP for my friend, and he's like, it's so cool that you're also a singer, and I could kind of, like, help him with his, like, vocal warm-ups and vocal takes and stuff, you know. And I think that's just something so cool that especially, yeah, artists and women can bring to being producers, and there needs to be more of it. Like, I definitely have had that feedback from, like, a lot of men in the industry as well. They're like, you just bring something really different. So yeah, that was kind of it. Just, like, wanting to have creative control and not really being happy with the environment and, like, the circumstances of what my music was sounding like before. And yeah.
Do you use any particular drum sample libraries, or, like, any kind of plugins for drums or synths that you like?
Yeah, I like just finding sounds, like, wherever, or, like, just free random samples. But I am a big, like, old school drum machine gal. Like, I do like my nice kind of, like, custom 808 or, like, LM1 like classic Prince drum machine. I just love that. Like, it just sounds so cool every time I hear it. So yeah, I kind of just, like, tweak some sounds with some, like, kind of vintage digital emulations of, like, classic drum machines. And then for synths, to be honest, I'm pretty old school as well. I just use the Tal Juno a lot. I love the sound of a Juno. But getting into using, like, the new Massive X and Serum a bit more, just to get those kind of more modern, like, chirpy, weird sounds, you know, that you just don't get from an analog synth. And yeah, learning that a bit more, definitely, like, with working as a producer more, because I think with, like, the old school stuff, that would just work better for my sound, because my artist stuff is kind of, like, incorporating like, modern electronic, but then it's also kind of quite songwriter and song based. So, you know, there needs to be an element of, like, the production not being overwhelming. So I find, like, yeah, just using some kind of classic drum sounds and a Juno always kind of works. And then, yeah, just, like, yeah, sometimes, like, real drum loops and things, just whatever works for the music, I'd say. Like, I'm pretty open. What I do is I also try and, like, reverse engineer songs quite a lot, just to, like, learn about different production styles all the time, like, especially when I'm working with a new artist, and that often, like, pushes me into different territory with understanding like, different production styles and what people use. So, like, recently I've been studying, like, that kind of PC music, Arca kind of sounds that those guys use, and certain kind of crazy weird plugins like filter and stutter plugins and things like that kind of
This is leading on to my next question.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah,
That's
just
like
shit that just
yeah.
makes things crazy, because I don't use a lot of outboard like, you know, external gear.
Yeah.
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 Real
Yeah.
stuff. Real stuff that
Real
works and makes
things,
sounds
yeah.
in the real time. Yeah.
Analog.
Analog. Yeah, I don't use the analog that much. So yeah, just things that make using digital a bit more fun. Yeah.
A bit more fun, yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask, like, one of my questions that always has a really fun answer I found in these interviews is that, you know, when you, like, you're making tunes and you find this, like, plugin or that you stumble upon this sound or technique or, like, even if it's, like, happy mistake that you just fucking love and you just use it on, like, 5 songs in a row. And I always have that. And I just wondered, was there anything right now that you're like buzzing off, like a particular plugin or like, oh, I've discovered this thing, you know?
Yeah. I would say it's probably the Isotope Stutter, which is a relatively old plugin, but it was...
I think I've used that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I just like processed a lot of the vocals for a recent EP with my friend Lola that we're working on because she really likes making really buzzy, cool shit. And so we just processed a bunch of, well, basically everything. You can just run through it and then it just has like all the different rhythm, like kind of sequences and everything.
I think I've used that, yeah. I was trying to figure out the name of that because I think my friend Paul has that plugin.
Yeah.
And it has all the crazy, like, you know, when you hit a note, it's like...
Yeah, pretty much.
It's fucking great. And it's almost like... It reminds me of, like, you know, Radiohead, exit music for a film, kind of like male vocal weird.
Definitely.
Like,
yes.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's
I
definitely
love
got
that
those
one.
vibes. Yeah, definitely Radiohead. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
a lot
yeah.
of fun. What else? I don't know. I've been going a bit like... I've been going back to my roots a bit. So, like... To be honest, I've been really enjoying, like... I mean, I love simplicity in songwriting, like, always. Like, I think that's always at the root of it for me. Like, I've really been enjoying Big Pig's latest album. I don't know if you know
I
Big
don't
Pig.
know that. No.
Yeah, just, like... I mean, some of the producers she works with are, like... Their production is so, like, clean. Like, just the way that they think about the frequency range and just like the stereo image and just like it'll often just be really simple and effective. Like, I hate Kanye's personality, love his music. I think he does that really well. You know, like the simplicity's key kind of thing. And just like listening to songs where they'll just have this really big, warm, clean like sub bass and then just like these really perfectly like EQ'd like rim shot samples or something, and just like that just like is so amazing. Like, there's a song called No, and it's just literally that, and then her vocal processing, which is just like amazing, and it just works so well, like just a couple elements. And so I've been really trying to like also distill things down as well at the same time. Like, I'll have my like really crazy productions where I go all out, but then at the same time just trying to focus on a couple elements and make them sound really like perfect.
I suppose like this is kind of like an artist interview, but way more like in depth on the production side, because all the things I want to know about, like really geeky things like, you know, workflow and like plugins and all that. But I was gonna ask, you know, with workflow, because that's something that's so important, I think. And do you have any particular you know, when you kind of hit a wall, or even not if you hit a wall necessarily, but if there's anything that makes your life easier and in getting to the ideas that you like quicker, because you know, when you first start using programs, it's all a bit kind of like, oh, what's this? And you know, organizing sessions and using like grouping and like bus channels and like, is there anything that you like to do that makes it streamlined?
Oh, for sure. I mean, as you said just then, like just naming everything, grouping everything, I'm a really big fan of. Like, yeah, I think being organized is a weird one. People probably wouldn't think of when it comes to production, right? But it just makes your life so much easier. Just I remember that was just such a tip that I got from my friend John. He like looked over one of my sessions and was like, you can like group the instruments into the frequency ranges and then look at the mix that way. And I was like, oh my god, that's brilliant. And so like ever since then it's definitely been good to just like group like my bass, drums, everything in its in their frequency ranges. And then what was the other thing? Oh yeah, like getting inspired. I mean, I haven't actually, I'm not a big like sample person. I know sample culture is like taken over the whole world, and hip hop's taken over the whole world. So I'm like kind of catching on to that and incorporating just the use of samples a bit more when I work with someone, and just like kind of having like getting their references, getting a playlist, and then kind of just like digging up samples that could be like the basis of an idea, or like a loop that could be the basis of an idea. I find workflow really well, and just like kind of flicking through, and I'll just have everything like lined up in this session, and then just like literally just like play a bunch of samples and be like, do you like this, do you like that, and then just kind of like see what we vibe off, and then kind of and have maybe like an 808 lined up and samples, and then just some like synths that might kind of fit the vibe. So yeah, like definitely like knowing your gear is a really big one too, and kind of catering that to the artist, and just having things lined up in the session that kind of help the flow of creativity. And just listening to new artists that we think are cool and doing something fresh. Like I love just digging up random like underground like things on YouTube and the internet, and just being like, how did they make that sound? Like I love the challenge of just trying to like recreate stuff as well. Like I kind of am a bit of a is it con artist, like in that sense, where it's just like about just like replicating sounds as well. I find really fun. But then it kind of turns into its own thing at the end anyway. Like it's starting off inspired by one idea and then kind of seeing where you end up. Yeah.
That's how you do it. Yeah. That's how you learn. And
what's the point if you're not like inspired by something to create something else? Yeah.
I watched your live, it was on Instagram for Roundhouse sessions. Oh, it was so good. Like, and listening to the music is so atmospheric and lush and like really soundscapey and I really dig it. Like lots of space, and I just wondered how much you mix as you go. Because when you're working with reverbs and space, and that's kind of like very much focused on the mix and panning things and things like that. And I just wondered, when you're writing a tune, how much of mixing you do on the fly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I definitely mix on the fly as I go a lot. I think it's mostly because I'm just a bit OCD. Like I don't like hearing something really dry. Like I need to hear it in context, and I think my workflow's like fast enough where I can just be like, okay, do I want this here, like this needs to be panned, this needs to have this kind of reverb and stuff. But they used to call me reverb queen in uni because I probably overdid the reverb, so I think my challenge is to like dial it back sometimes. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of music that's like sentimental and a bit atmospheric and just like kind of creates a world. And I think part of creating a world is like just having nice sounds in your ear holes.
Yeah, man. It's been hard, like a challenge for me to not throw loads of shit on a track and like scale it back as much as possible. Like that's been a real challenge for me, and like continually I like try and scale things back because I have a tendency to just put loads of shit on it, and it's, you don't need it. Yeah, totally. You need it like a lot of the time.
It's a really good challenge to just like strip it back and figure out the elements that are actually the core of the song, and actually the core of like what you want to present, because the reality is like people are just going to be listening to it on their shitty headphones and stuff. So like what's actually gonna come through. So yeah, stripping things back to their like fundamental form and really accentuating the things that you want to accentuate is really good. Yeah, I'm still doing that. It's a learning process all the time. Yeah, my workflow is more like, you know, like you hear a sound or you like imagine an idea in your head and then you're trying to like get it down on your DAW, whereas like starting from like a synthesis point of view, like completely creating the sound from scratch and then just seeing how it develops and then seeing how you're just like adding layers rather than having an idea in your head that you're just trying to like get down. So that's definitely cool. I feel like there's a lot more enjoyment that comes from that kind of workflow as well as just kind of like vibing out and just seeing where the music takes you rather than having a really constricted idea. But there's definitely like pluses to both. I mean, you know, some of the production, especially like pop production that we're getting nowadays, is just like crazy good, you know, like it's so like next level, and there's just like hundreds and hundreds of tracks like perfectly curated, and I definitely have so much respect for that kind of workflow as well, and just like nitpicking like songwriting to the nth degree so that it's just like the perfect pop song and stuff, you know, like that is wild. And it's just it's so insanely different. Like I appreciate both approaches. Like
it's good to challenge yourself.
Definitely
in different ways.
I think that's the best thing, is just to stay inspired, is just to always be trying something different.
But what do you do when you are working on your own and it's really difficult to sometimes keep up the momentum with ideas and where you want to take something? And sometimes like I would literally just hit a wall and you know, be staring at the screen like I don't know what to do next. So I wondered if there's anything you like to do to get unstuck from those moments.
I don't know. I feel like I'm like pretty consistently like inspired by something, or I'm like really not, and then I really go with those moments where I'm not, or I just like won't work on music, which probably isn't a good approach, because at the moment I just find I'm so bogged down with like just life and like other work that I don't sit down and just force myself to be creative. But I find I don't know, like I went to like a kind of write night the other night, and that was really good because it was just like just force creativity, man. It sometimes actually really works. Like it's surprising, you know, when it does, when you're literally just like, just do something, like do anything, you know, and then you just like mindlessly like will just get a bunch of stuff and just start, and then you find that you kind of like something will catch on eventually. I think that's like a hurdle that's really good to get over, like just to like make something. Like
my friend Anil is like, he has so many great things to say about this. And he comes at it from the approach of, you know, music, like so much of the time we attach like this godlike status to it. And although that is true, like it is amazing and magical, but also it can be really like, you know, domestic, and like you could just be sat at home like singing a melody and recording it into your phone, and it doesn't have to be amazing and magical. It just can be normal, and you don't have to attach so much pressure and importance to it. Like you can discard ideas if you want. Like it's not like, don't attach so much importance to it all the time. And I find that can actually help you overcome these moments, because you know, when you hit these moments of like uninspired mess, or like, you know, I don't know where to take this track, it's like because you're attaching far too much importance on it.
Totally.
And when you move away from that, you can just feel free to try ideas, and if it's shit, well then it's fine.
Absolutely.
Just do something else.
100%. I've definitely done that in the past, like put way too much. You just like, if you put too much pressure on it, it's not fun anymore as well. Like
it's not fun. That's it.
And it's like, I remember someone actually said to me, I think a friend was like, do you even enjoy the process, because I think I was antagonizing over something, you know, and I was like, you know what, I don't even know if I do. Like, I'm at the point where I don't even know if I do. And I think when you realize that, like, the creation process is the whole point, like the journey of it is the point. It's like not the end product. I think that really changed my view about it, because I was like, yeah, it's the process. Like, if I'm not enjoying the process and you put so much like emphasis on the outcome, then what is the point? Because in reality, like, you will make incredible work that you'll just like antagonize over, and then no one will care, and like that sucks, you know. So like, it's better to just like enjoy the process, do things with your friends, like do things with people that you love, just like make cool shit and enjoy the process. And then you find you don't care so much about what people think, because you're just like, well, I fucking love it, and that's fun doing it, and that is the main thing. Like, I've found that's helped me so much, like just such a weight's lifted.
I think that's been a big theme, and everyone I've interviewed so far said, I don't give a shit whether the other people like it, as long as I love it. And, you know, I spoke to, I don't know whether you know that she's an electronic DJ based in the UK, like Object Blue. And she was the first person I interviewed, and she said, she made such a great point about, it was at the end of the interview, and it was quite inspiring. And she was like, you are a god in your own temple, and the temple is your music, and you are like being fed grapes in this fucking temple.
I love that.
And that is how you should feel when regarding your own music, because you are a god in your own like world. Like, and I just love that. I was like that's so FK Twigs, like that is literally amazing. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. And I feel, and it's so weird. I don't know whether you feel like this, but when I started out as an artist, I felt like that. But then the industry just chipped away at me to the point where I feel like, I know that deep down I'm still that person who's I love my own music. I love it. Totally. And it's getting back to that excitement about your own music. That's so important, because if you don't, you know, if you're not excited about it,
how do you expect anyone else to be?
How do you expect it?
Yeah, totally. I just completely empathize. Like, it's really hard to not let the industry chip away. But I mean, as I was saying before, I do feel like independent artists can take the power back, and there's something so amazing about just being unapologetic and just going like, this is my shit, like, take it or leave it, like, I love it. And it's just so cool to see. Like, I mean, just, I love the attitudes of like people like, maybe I've been watching too many like Cardi B and like Nicki Minaj interviews, but they're just like, they have such a like step off my shit kind of attitude, and I feel like you need to be a bit like that as a woman in the industry as well. You just have to be like, fuck you. Like, I mean, I've been fucking rude to some people, and I've had like my partner be like, you're so rude, and I'm like, you've just got to be like that. Like, people just do not understand, and like, you understand your shit more than anyone else, and you are your biggest fan, and you've just got to like, go get it. Be the goddess in the temple for sure. Yeah, that's great advice.
Being fed grapes. Whoever.
The underworld.
It's great, isn't it? I love that.
Yeah,
I love
definitely. I mean, I think it's so right. Like, it's such a great analogy for what us independent artists need to do. Like, just keep being our biggest fans, and I think you just attract the right people being like that. I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is like the people that like your music have got to be the right people. Like, I always think about that, like when eventually, you know, like you're playing like, I don't know, your first like sold out show, like think about the kind of people that you want to, and the kind of atmosphere you want to create, and the kind of people you want to be you want at that show.
Yeah.
You know, like that's
Yeah.
really cool. And you have that power, like that's all in your hands to create. For all the shit talking that I've done about big labels, you know, they still do allow artists to have the funding to do stuff. And to be honest, like if I was to be offered a big label deal, I would probably say yes, you know? So it's like, but you just need to maintain your integrity, like within the process, and also know your shit so you don't get screwed over. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it must be a really hard line to walk.
Yeah. I'll walk the line.
I'll walk the line for the money. No.
Give me an advance.
Yeah, give me an advance. Well, hopefully we'll get to a stage where we won't need to do that.
Yeah.
Because the returns will be in our favour.
Hopefully.
I wondered whether you had any kind of general advice for women who are starting to produce their own music.
Yeah, it's funny, like I'm in a lot of those like women in music forums and things, and my advice would just be like, so much information is out there, like just be hungry to learn. And I think a motivating factor for me is just like men are very good at like having each other's backs and like learning from each other, and yeah, like they kind of just like have that kind of bro in the studio environment where they're all like sharing ideas and whatnot. So yeah, definitely just like joining groups and keep being hungry to learn. But I would say the main way that I learn about production is just like through YouTube and through like tutorials and just being inspired by sounds that artists are creating and trying to reverse engineer stuff. I know it sounds really complicated, but like once you kind of know a bit about even just understanding like the stock sounds in the DAW and knowing it really well, you can pretty much create anything. I mean, like a lot of the kind of like basic synths in Ableton, for instance, you can pretty much create any sound if you know how to use a synthesizer well enough, you know, like, I mean, I definitely don't shy away from using presets, but like, yeah, learning the fundamentals and then like learning what you like and learning how to recreate it is a really good starting point. Or Sophie was using this old drum machine, old bit of gear. It's like a sampler drum machine, but that's how Sophie was like able to create those kind of real glitchy like hyper pop sounds is on that bit of hardware that's like so old, but no one's ever used it in that way. And I found that really inspiring. I was just like, whoa. And then I went to buy one and it was like $3,000. I was like, but but it's just how you use it. Like there's so much capacity.
It's been so great, and thanks for taking the time.
Amazing. Okay, thanks so much, Natalie.
Bye-bye.
Have a great rest of your night.
Thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and follow to this podcast. I'm Natalie McCool, and you can find me and my music on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and also on my website nataliemccool.co.uk. Thanks!
You're a magnet.